All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning. This is Meditation and Spiritual Practice. I'm Rabbi Wieder. Great to see everybody. And this week, besides it being a new year, the first of 2021, this is also the beginning. This week is the beginning of the book of Exodus in our Torah.
Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Hold on a second.
This is Meditation and Spiritual.
Okay. So this starts the book of Exodus, and this is our fundamental story of redemption. It's also the story of freedom, which, from a mystical perspective, is really is a story of inner freedom. So, and what I say about that is, every bit of the Torah has what's called its revealed aspect and its hidden aspect. Nigle and nistar. Nistar is hidden. And of course, the revealed aspect is the stories as talking about people, events, things that happen, whether you take this as literally as this is what happened within historical time, or whether you take it metaphorically, it still is a story about people and objects on the outside. Now, the mystics, when we talk about a mystical perspective, we talk about the story as a mirror for our own inner growth. So when we talk about slavery of the Israelites and the eventual redemption and freedom brought through Moses, we're talking about what are the ways in which we experience our own kind of inner slavery, our own inner bondage, which really in Hasidic terms is talked about as mochen dikatnut, or contracted mind, small mind. And the real sense about things is that all of us, it's a natural human experience to move through the world from mochin dikatnut, from small mind. And that's not a pejorative term, it's just a human term. And what that's referring to is that we see the world and ourselves through our own prism, through our own filters. And using those words prisms and filters is very intentional, because the acknowledgement is that we're not seeing and experiencing completely what is real, what is in front of us, without our own kind of overlay, our own way of choosing to filter some parts of the light in and other parts out. And that filter that each one of us holds has lots of different aspects to it. But there is an aspect of it which is that it's constricting, because it lets in some of the light and not all of it. And the places where the light is not let in, the place where we are not present to the infinite presence, alive presence of God, of life, of all of that, is ways that we experience suffering and we experience pain. And that's just a human thing. The story of the Exodus, the story of redemption, is at the same time that we do have our natural experience of small mind and of the ways in which our filters constrict us, we also have a striving and a possibility to see beyond our filters, to experience more, to grow beyond our own boundaries. And that desire to grow, that desire to expand, that desire for what is called mochin digadlut, or great mind, a much wider perception, is that movement of Moses taking the Israelites out of Egypt and to Mount Sinai. And what's great about the Exodus story too, and in subsequent weeks we'll explore it, is that process from mochen dikatnut, from small mind to great mind, is just that. It's a process. It's an ongoing process. And the whole even story of the plagues and the back and forth with Pharaoh is a way of trying to describe that that we go through that process. We don't just snap our fingers and suddenly we experience this great mind, this incredible liberation and feeling. That's possible, and sometimes that happens. That's called grace, and we have stories for that as well. But most of the time, it takes effort, it takes intention, and it takes being able to meet the resistances that we experience in our lives and in our minds and our consciousness with a certain degree of love and strength and openness and all of those qualities that Moses brings in the story. So for today, though, the one piece that I want to highlight in our story of redemption, in our own meditative practice of expanding into greater mind, is found at the story of the burning bush. So we know that the whole beginning of redemption happens in two ways. The first aspect is that God hears the cry of the Israelites. Now that's a really, really interesting statement, because as I'm saying it right now, when we think God hears, is that something that happens in a moment in time? Isn't God the all-present, all-knowing, that even the cry of the Israelites is something that is part of the God expression? In the story, there is a moment of hearing on God's perspective. And it's that moment that causes God to reach towards Moses as the Redeemer, as the one to set it all in motion. And the way that God reaches through is to manifest in a bush that's burning. Now, what's interesting is now if we go ahead and look at Moses' side of things, what is happening with Moses? Well, we know that Moses is, besides being somebody who stands up for justice, right? In Egypt, he was the one that saw the Egyptian beating on the Israelite and said, no, that can't happen. And he stands up in that way. He's one that stands up against, there's women at the well in Midian, how he meets his first wife, Sephora, as they're being abused and harassed, and he clears away the shepherds and helps them get drink from the well. So that's standing up. But he's also a shepherd. And the Midrash even says that it's his care for his sheep that really also draws him towards being the leader. So the Midrash goes as he follows one of his sheep that goes out into the wilderness, goes out beyond the boundaries almost of what is known. It says it almost like he goes beyond the wilderness, the text says. And so he's going into this place of kind of unknown, and it's all being driven by love. It's being driven by care for his sheep. And he goes out into that place, and in that moment, he sees a bush that's burning. Now, what's interesting is it's not just the bush that's burning, but it's that the bush is burning and it's not being consumed, right? There's all kinds of fires. Fires are a natural thing that goes on in the wilderness. Sometimes there's fires. And, Moses is going after his sheep and he sees a bush that's on fire. Well, most people would see that fire and think, wow, better not get too close to that. Let me continue on. Is my sheep safe? Oh, my sheep has gone beyond, beyond the fire, is going in another direction. I'm gonna just keep on after my sheep and kind of stay away from that fire, because that's dangerous. If Moses was to do that, the burning bush would not have had the experience that he had of God speaking to him and calling to him in this deep way of what his destiny was. Instead, Moses had to notice that the bush wasn't being consumed. He's not going to notice that the bush is not being consumed if he sees the bush, better get away from that, let me head on to see my sheep. Instead, he has to sit there and look at the bush for a period of time. How long would it take to notice that the bush is burning and not being consumed? A minute? Would it be a minute? 2 minutes? 5 minutes? Kind of really depends to really, if he had no idea of what he was looking for, I'm seeing if this bush is burning and not being consumed. He has no idea what he's looking for. I would say that he has to be there for a period of time to actually notice that there's something remarkable that is going on. So there's a piece about Moses's journey here that he is present for what is happening in a way that is maybe not so ordinary. There's something about that bush burning that draws his attention. And he only is able to notice that it's not consumed when he's there for a period of time. And it's in that moment that him being there for the period of time when God speaks to him and says, and God reveals his name, Eyeh Asher Eyeh, I will be what I will be. And this is what is happening, and this is what your calling is. This is what I'm calling you to do. So again, without getting into the whole dynamics of the conversation that God has with Moses, there is that moment of, in order for Moses to hear, to listen, to be in relationship with that greater presence, Moses has to stop and pay attention. To stop and pay attention. And really that's, as we know, what we do in meditation is we stop and we pay attention. And but the story is really inviting us to say, when you stop and pay attention, when you are present with what is here, you have the capacity to tap into a deeper relationship with life, with this moment, with God. And that's, I'm using those words really specifically. You have the opportunity to tap into a deeper relationship, right? I'm not just sitting here by myself, present with what is, isolated. The acknowledgement, when we talk about God's presence, the acknowledgement is that no matter where we go, no matter what we feel or think, we are always in relationship. We are always connected to something greater than ourselves. And when we say relationship, we imply two, right? We imply a relationship takes more than one to be in relation. And that too is a natural part and expression of human consciousness, that even as we talk about God as one, as all of us being in one, we connect in and awaken to that one through the two, through the awareness that we are connected with something greater. And that right there, this is the difficulty with language, but even just by saying we are in relationship with something greater, we are using the language of duality, of two. And that's just something that I want us to hold into as we pay attention in this moment in our meditation, that our paying attention is driven by the desire to be in relationship. So that's what we'll take into our meditation this morning. All right, so go ahead and find a comfortable place to sit, that you can sit for a period of time without fidgeting too much. It's okay. And we'll start with a nigun, a melody. Yada 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 So begin by becoming aware of your body in space, noticing your position in the chair, the contact between your bottom and the cushion, the contact between the bottom of your feet and the ground, the distance between the bottom of your spine and the top of your head, the way your arms hang out of your shoulders, and the resting place of your hands, the space between your ears, the air as it touches your face. As you're aware of the outline of your body, the sensation in your body, notice the movement of breath as it enters through the nostrils or the mouth, the expansion of the chest or belly on the inhale, Notice where the inhale ends and the exhale begins, following the air out and noticing the body's gentle contraction with the exhale. As you pay attention to the movement of breath and the position of your body in space, notice your choice, your intention to be present, to be here, to be open, to be in relationship. It's almost as if your own inner being has a knowing of relationship, of connection. And your choice in the moment is to be available to it. To be able to say, Hineni, here I am, available for this moment, for the relationship that I am a part of. And as you are available and present with breath and body, you can also let the existence of sounds and thoughts, images and concepts as they move through your mind. You can let all of it be part of the relationship. The entire divine symphony we are present for. And that's our practice for this morning. To notice our intention and choice to be present and available to relationship in this moment. That everything in our field of experience is part of that relationship, is part of that presence. Including our own desire to be here, including our own witnessing of this moment. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yadanai, yadanai, yadanai. Yai, yai, dai, dai, dai. Yadanai, yadanai, yadanai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yadanai, yadanai, yadanai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. Yai, dai, dai, dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, dai, dai. Yai, dai, dai, yai, dai, dai, dai. So the floor is open for any questions or comments, either about the teaching, about the story, taken in a mystical way, about the meditation itself. Dennis.
Yeah, there are a million ways that God could have presented himself to Moses. What do the scholars say about why God chose the burning bush over the 87 billion other things he could have done?
No, that's a great question. Well, some of the things about about the bush was that it was that fire and burning is a act of transformation, right? Fire is something that changes something from one to another. So one possibility may be that part of what God's revealing of God's self to Moses was as a force for transformation. Um, Part of what I also, imagine is, God's giving Moses a pretty tall order, which is, to redeem an entire people from, under Pharaoh. So in what way does God need to reveal God's self to Moses so that Moses, knows that this presence that is promises to be with him is going to be successful, is going to, that he can trust. And maybe that image of transformation is something that's necessary.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything tough about the meditation this morning? Anything that was in making this choice to be present and available to relationship while we're sitting on our own in our home? How is that for people?
I'm kind of used to it after a year.
I actually found that it helped, that it didn't hinder the meditation. I felt that it helped, that by not thinking about the I, the me, and being connected was very helpful in the concentration, because I was part of something beyond myself.
Yeah. It's so interesting. We've talked before about that how we are being present in our moment of meditation, of spiritual practice, how that can help us be present in our relationships, being able to be available. Here we're kind of almost taking it, going the other way, thinking about how can what we know about being present and available to our relationships actually help us be present and available to the ultimate relationship, in a sense, here. And a lot of, I think one of the things that gets very confusing when we start getting into the world of talking about meditation or spirituality is that it for a lot of people, it feels very otherworldly. When we start to, there's the physical and the spiritual is something that is otherworldly. I can't really connect to. What are we talking about here? And really, but what we are talking about is not something over there. It's something that's right here, that it's the deeper dimension of what is right here in our lives. And so real spirituality, as we're talking about it here, is every moment of our lives. It's about our relationships with people. It's about the choices we make in the world. It's all of those things. So a lot of the time, the way that we can learn more about going deeper is to look around at what we know from our lives here and there. What do we know about being available for others in relationship? What is it like to make the decision that somebody is in our lives is going through a hard time, and to make a decision to be present to them and listen to them, and not necessarily have to fix their problems or analyze or do something about it, but instead to really just be able to say, I hear you, that's hard, I understand. What is it like to bring your presence to that and be available for that? Or to hear somebody that has something that they're requesting of us that's important, and they're about to tell us something that's really important to them that we need to know. What is it like to be able to listen non-defensively and just, I really want to understand and hear. I'm going to be available. I'm going to be present to what you have to say and just take that in. What do we know about those things? I know, as I'm kind of seeing little smiles and nods in both of those examples, we know how we come to relationship imperfectly. We come to relationship trying to fix, or we come to relationship being difficult, hearing what somebody is requiring from us without being defensive. But we also, I think every one of us here also has had experiences, even if just one time, of doing that well, of being there for somebody without having to fix, and doing that well. We have that felt experience to draw from. Can we now take that and bring that into our practice? Can that help inform us as we sit with ourselves here in our own space, in our own room, to be available in that way? Yeah, Maury.
So yes,
Norma.
if I was going to say we, but I should say if I calm my busy mind, which I'm able to do more during meditation, that's that peacefulness is, the whole idea for me is to carry that throughout my life, to be at peace with myself, to be at peace with others. And I think you're right that we don't appreciate how much power we have just being there for somebody else. I feel like we have to do something, but how grateful people are just to have someone there with them, whether it's listening or doing something that you're asked to do. But I think mostly just being there is a very powerful thing.
Yeah, thank you, Maury. Norma.
I never speak, but right now my daughter Heather is going through a really tough time. Both boys have COVID. The youngest one has it worse than the older one. And she can't even be with them because it was their father, who she's divorced from, that exposed them. So they're staying with him. And so every day she makes something and brings it over to them just to make sure that they have food. She leaves it at the front door, and then she goes home and she FaceTimes with them just to make sure that they got it, that they're eating, that they're doing it. I have had to sit and listen to her and just be there for her to listen, because she feels that she's not fulfilling her motherly duties by taking care of them. And I told her she's doing the best that she can with what that she can. And it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
But on another hand, I look forward to this every week because I don't know what I'd do without the interaction.
Norma,
I
when
thank you all for being there.
yeah, absolutely. Just about that, do you find is it easy for you to, I mean, I know it's hard, it's difficult to feel and experience what her suffering and what she's going through and all of this, to be able to just be there for her without, trying to fix it or having to just be there compassionately. Is that easy?
No, it's very difficult. Very difficult. Because I want to go over and I want to take those boys home.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that they're eating. I want to make sure that they're getting their medication. She can't do it. I can't do it. So we're relying on somebody who has. The reason for the divorce was he was never there for them. He is what we call a Disneyland dad. And having him have complete control of both boys all the time until they get better is very difficult for her and for me.
Right.
But
Are you able to see them,
No.
Norma? Are
No.
you able to see them?
No,
Are you able to see them on Zoom?
not on Zoom, but we've FaceTimed on our, because we all have the same phone. So I am able to do that. But when I see them just laying there, and that's what they're doing, they're just laying there. They're supposed to be back at school already, and they don't have the energy to even sit and play their video games.
Yeah.
So it's just really hard. And thank you for listening.
Norma, I think about that some of what the edge that you're having to push against in your own growth and practice in this is really having faith that your presence for your daughter and for your grandchildren when you're there is enough. Having faith that it's enough. That really that presence that you bring is a way of bringing God's presence, just through that. And so that seems like that's the edge. That's the edge when we don't have the control, when we can't do all of the things that we normally would do to address a situation of pain and suffering, is to believe that our presence is enough. This is just kind of a side comment, and I don't, not really for you to respond to, but just an interesting reflection, which, may or may not sit well, but is that it's very interesting if you're describing their father as, the one who has never been present, the Disneyland dad, and now he has to be present. Now they're all together in one space with COVID, and, there is that care that's going on. It's just interesting how one might look at the situation unfolding as it is almost like, Hashem giving him the opportunity to say, you gotta step up here. And our prayer, of course, is that he will step up enough so that, these boys will get through what they're getting through and get back to, and, kind of normal routine and normal all of that. And that's what all of our prayers, can be right now. I also want to, if you could just tell me real quick, I'll jot it down. what are your grandchildren's names in either in English or Hebrew?
I don't know their Hebrew names, and my daughter can't find their breed.
That's okay. What's their English names?
It's Ethan Gorin and Nathaniel Gorin.
Yes, you say their names plenty.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to add them into my.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry. I lose it.
No, you know what, Norma? Besides the fact that we all love you, and that it's to be able to be present for you during what you're going through is a gift for us. You're also bringing up something that we all wrestle with, which is how do we be present for others when we don't have the control? You know, how do we let whatever it is be enough? And that's certainly translatable to not only our relationships but our own inner practice.
Thank you.
Before we close, is there anybody who hasn't spoken yet that would like to share anything? Gail or Lisa? Okay. Any last comments before we close?
Thank you.
Oh.
Again, Norma, the whole point is your presence, which is so important. And I thank you for talking and reaching out to the group, and don't underestimate the importance of your presence to your family.
Mhm.
Thanks, Maureen.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Have a great week. Thanks for the wonderful time. Talk to everybody.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.